I have worked in video games for over 20 years, and I can say with pretty much 99% certainty that if the game designers of Elden Ring were working in the PS2, PS3 era, they would have been fired. That's a good thing. It means that our industry is always changing, and it also means we're not out of surprises. The thing that worked yesterday won't work today. And that's a good thing for gamers, and it's a good thing for developers. Keeps us on our toes. So I am a game developer, and so from time to time I play a game that is, part of the zeitgeist. Everybody's talking about it, and sometimes I have to really analyze why is this particularly getting a lot of traction. And in the case of Elden Ring, I feel like there's a few things that I certainly learned from an analytical perspective because, as I said, I'm a game developer. I have to understand, why is this acceptable? Certain design choices that would not have been acceptable before. And so I have what one might consider an unpopular opinion about this game. But yet at the same time, I don't want to give you the impression that I don't enjoy it. I think that there's a reason why a lot of people really enjoy Elden Ring that they may not have enjoyed 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I think that it's sort of like we've been groomed, one might say, to really want this type of an experience because there's a lot of broken things that go against traditional game design logic. And a great example of this is, for instance, with the world map itself. Looking around in the world map, we've gotten kind of accustomed to having icons placed where we're supposed to go. And so when we're on a quest in something like Assassin's Creed, bring the parchment to this one character or go and assassinate that one guy. Well, we've got a little marker on our map that shows us exactly what town he's in and possibly even which square block he's in. The only challenge we have is to figure out what elevation to go to. And this was very prevalent in something like Horizon Forbidden West, for example, which I played immediately before playing Elden Ring. And one of the things that really stood out to me is that in Elden Ring, they do none of that. The only icons that you have on the world map are essentially locations of large towns or teleportation locations, the save points that you can use to teleport all over the map. And so there's a lot that's left for you to figure out. So for instance, you will just be wandering around and find some item or find some boss. You kill that guy and then you get an item. And it might say something in the description of the item as to what you might do with it. But I found that more than any other game that I've ever played in my entire life, I never looked up online as much information. I never got lost as much as I did with Elden Ring. And it's almost to an unfair degree. And I think this is why you see people like even Dr. Disrespect just getting so frustrated with some of the design of the game because it's very unexpected. And the reason why a lot of hardcore gamers like this is because we want surprises. We're sort of tired of the easy mode. We're tired of the expected. Now I don't want to speak for everybody, man. This is just my somewhat unpopular opinion. But I think the reason people are dazzled by this, what would be considered bad game design 10, 15 years ago, one of the reasons why people are dazzled by this now is because it's so unpredictable. And a great example of this is like walking around a corner and having something instant kill you. That seems very unfair. And with no indication as to the fact that this thing will kill you. No training up. A traditional game designer's logic is to teach the player that, this thing is dangerous, and here's a little safety net where you can practice how to beat it, before you go and sort of face the test. It's sort of like Elden Ring just throws the test at you, and then after you die, that was your learning lesson. It was like fighting the thing is your lesson. That's your safety area doesn't exist. It's just go in and fight the thing. And from a game designer's perspective, this is broken as hell. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. This is not the way that they would teach you to design games if you went to some kind of a class on game design. I have no idea how they would teach game designers the logic behind Elden Ring other than to say, hey, surprise the player, screw them over, and they'll figure it out. Now, why does that work? Why do we tolerate that? Because we've been groomed to tolerate it with several Dark Souls and Demon Souls games in the past. So this feels like the culmination of something whereby we'd been taught to expect the unexpected. And the only reason why we have any understanding of how it works is because we've had previous installments in the past. And even the core systems, for example, using the Estus Flask, upgrading the Estus Flask, using a kind of souls type of currency that is also your XP currency, all of that, I did not understand that. I had a copy of Demon Souls that I bought on sale for like $20 at one point, and a friend of mine came over to my house and he's like, "Why haven't you been playing this?" And I was like, "I don't get it. It seems just broken. It seems wrong. It seems like ill-designed, or like it was designed with ill intention towards the player to intentionally frustrate the player." And the thing is he had to sit down and show me how to play. And once he did, I became quite hooked, because there is a massive sense of reward when you do overcome a boss. It is sort of like there is an addiction to the challenge of it. And there's almost a kind of an elitist pride that comes from saying, "Hey, I beat that game. Like, I'm stuck on Malekith right now on Elden Ring. That's pretty far into the game." And that's after killing that stupid duck with the golden chicken's foot for like 2 hours. So yeah, I'm like level 200. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, I cheesed it to get there. And a lot of Elden Ring fans just lost total gamer respect for me. But I'll tell you what, it's the only damn way I can play these games. And why? Because I got a damn job to do. I'm like, I can't play 3 days of being stuck on a boss, dying repeatedly, and then keep coming back to it with any sense of personal self-respect. No, I'd rather take the hit in regards to the easy runes than to do that. Which is also why, by the way, some people's entire careers have been built out of making YouTube videos about how to cheese bosses or which weapons are OP in Elden Ring right now. They're getting massive clicks because everybody wants to see how they can make their lives a little easier and enjoy the fun part of Elden Ring, which is the fun part. Let me get to that. So that's the exploration part. That's the unknown. So one of the things that's really beautiful about the system of not having icons on your map or quest lines that you can like follow up on, is that you don't know what the hell to expect. You could just be inching closer and closer to a little ledge to see if there's something down there, find that there's a little tiny itty bitty cropping down there that'll wipe out 90% of your health, but you'd still survive it. And you jump down there and hey, maybe you die, because the game designers like to throw that unexpected thing at you sometimes where, hey, sometimes you just die while exploring. And then other times you might land down there and you find something that's of a really high value. And so it's worth just exploring. And if you're really hardcore about these games, you just keep exploring and you want to find it all, because it's such an immense, let's just say a very large world with a lot of really hidden, interesting exploration rewards. That said, this is, again, goes totally against traditional game design knowledge or anything they would teach you in any kind of game design class. It's fascinating to me how people have sort of almost been acclimated to go, oh yeah, well, because it's a From Software game, I expect that they're not going to tell me anything about how to play the game. And because it's a From Software game, I expect that there are going to be bosses that are going to one-shot kill me even if I've been playing for 90 hours or 100 hours or something. I expect that and I accept it. And that's a very strange logic to me, but at the same time, I kind of get it in the sense that, yeah, sure, if you know what you're doing, or if you are really strategic and very, really paying attention, this is a game for elitist gamers, really. And that's why I already know, there'll be people who hate my opinion on this for even saying this stuff. But the fact is, this is not something for your casual. This is not something that, I would recommend to the average person. There's no way. You won't beat it. You might enjoy it for a little bit here and there, but this is a game that literally I skipped the tutorial. I didn't even know I skipped it. And when I got outside of the cave, I got stomped by a boss, the very first enemy that I saw. It stomped me. And I played all the Souls games, and I've been playing games for 30 years, and I got stomped just right out of the gate. I even knew what to expect to some extent because I was aware. I did not step into this not knowing. what From Software does. This is a abusive relationship that I can't let go of. I am aware of that. The Dark Souls games, the Elden Rings and the Sekiros, these are abusive relationships that we're drawn to. This the moth to the flame, and they even play on that. The game designer Miyazaki said straight up, embrace death, embrace the concept of dying as a learning lesson, and then come back to it. Now, strategically, I just found to never carry anything of any value if I'm exploring, so that when you die, you never feel that loss. But is that, intuitive? I feel like that's almost counterintuitive. It's like, nah, man, I don't want to lose everything everywhere I go. In that way, it's almost like I prefer some of those games. Like, to me, in my opinion, I feel like I enjoy Horizon Forbidden West a bit more than Elden Ring, even though I'm addicted to Elden Ring, and I know why I'm coming back for it. I'm coming back for it because once you do defeat that boss that stomped you 50 times in a row for 3 days straight, it'll feel really good, even if you cheesed it or had to call in help. I think that's what I'll end up having to do. I think I'll end up having to call in help for Malekith, if you can. Now, how does one design something this challenging and difficult? I think that they actually probably have... I think that they have one level at which they test every boss. And I think that level is like maybe the mid-range, like a definitive, like this is the middle difficulty and it should still be difficult. And I know that I read somewhere or I heard somewhere that one of their standards is that they do not release a boss that the developers can't beat without getting hit. So if the developer can't defeat that boss without getting hit once, then they don't release it. So there has to be projections and tells, but some of these bosses just don't have a tell. A tell is when an enemy does a little, they also call it a bark. And that bark could just be an animation frame or a couple of animation moments, very brief moments where it just like his eyes glow red before he does this laser beam attack or something, just as a generic example. And in this game, I found that sometimes they just don't have a tell. They don't have a bark. So why do I like it? Why do people like it? Because it's unexpected and it's still good. Like it still feels really good. And there's always that feeling that like, maybe if I change out my gear, maybe if I change my strategy, things will go more of my way. Maybe for this enemy, I have to like completely reevaluate my process. And it doesn't feel like a rinse repeat. And I can say that with absolute certainty that one of the reasons why this game has a sticking power, and some people consider it a masterpiece, is because it forces you to think. You don't ever get bored with the same attack because the same attack won't always work. Even if you find that overpowered, corpse piler move, for example, guess what? At some point, they're going to either nerf it or you're going to fight a boss that it ain't going to work on. So then you go back and you get rebirth, and then you get yourself the fingerprint shield, and you try to find a respec that allows you to defend everything that the clergy Malekith throws at you, completely block at 100% of the damage. But then that doesn't work when you get to a second form, right? So you have to change up your strategy. And this is what keeps it interesting. And I think that that's why hardcore gamers love it. Now, because we've all seen the same pattern over and over again, a million times. One of the reasons why I think Breath of the Wild, for example, was very compelling is because there were a lot of different ways to approach every situation. It allows for player creativity. But one of the things about Elden Rings is that creativity happens in the stats. It happens in the play style, and it happens in your own skill building. So you're choosing which skill you want to develop. Even if you're cheesing the game, it won't always keep working. You'll have to keep evaluating that. And that's why you keep wanting to come back to it. Is it a hard game? Yeah, it is. Is it also a simple game? Yeah, it's also pretty simple in that regard too. But I would never say that it's accessible. It's not. It's the opposite of accessible. And 10 or 15 years ago, something like that was completely unacceptable. In fact, there were a lot of debates over whether or not games were becoming too easy back then. And that was the rise of the indie game scene too. And indie games had to be difficult because they were developed by 2 or 3 people, and they had to get a lot of mileage out of their assets. That's just what happens with indie games. But with From Software, it was Demon Souls was the first one to really do this, to really apply this same formula. And it was very smart. It's actually, there's not a lot of game there in Demon Souls, but it's very well designed so that it feels like there's a lot of replayability and a lot of exploration. You're really inching through it. So anyway, yeah, would I recommend this game? No, not to just anybody. But if you're already in, you're already in. So like, you don't need to hear my opinion. And this is also me struggling with like, why do I like this? Why do I keep coming back to it? It's a difficult thing to evaluate, especially as a game developer, as somebody who's like trying to design something myself. It's like, well, how accessible do I want it to be? I certainly don't want to go this hardcore, but there are definitely things that gamers and game designers could learn from Elden Ring. I think a big part of it is that mystery and exploration and the dazzling the player with the unexpected, even if the cost is great. I think that's the balance. I think that sometimes the cost is just too great. And I wouldn't want an easy mode either, though. It is its own thing. If you like challenging games, you're absolutely probably already playing it or already had played it, and you're probably already drafting your comment about, oh, it was easy, you know. But for my part, in my opinion, I think that it is something that I keep coming back to, and it is something that like I wasn't even sure if I was gonna play it right away and I waited a little bit because I was like, that's gonna be an ordeal. And as far as games go, I can't remember a game that was as big of an ordeal where it felt like, oh my God, I'm still playing this, and there's still so much left to do. And still so much left to figure out. And there is always like some side quest that you forgot about where somebody asked you to go get a sword. And it's like, I don't even remember who that was or where they said it. But like, you know that there's a lot left to do at all times. So you wander around while you're stuck on that Malekith, you're wandering around the world, you know, like, oh, what did I forget to do? Oh, I guess I better go get more of those greater runes, you know. And so like that I love that. That's straight up old school Ocarina of Time. You know, 30% of the game is the story. The rest is all exploration and optional content. And I absolutely love that aspect of it, you know, and that's something we also see in like Hollow Knight. I think it's becoming more common. But what's interesting is like when the Phantom Pain did it, people said, oh, look at how short this game is. And I don't think that was very fair. It was like, there are so many different ways to explore that game, you know? And I think that's what we have here. We have one of those situations, but maybe people had just been sort of acclimated to that sort of easy mode Assassin's Creed type of open world game, which I love too, by the way, don't get me wrong. And that I think that there was sort of like a feeling of excitement over not having it be too easy, having that great risk and great reward, you know, from the challenge of something like an open world Elden Ring. Open world Souls. Anyway, so that's it for me on my thoughts on Elden Ring. And if you played it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop those in the comments. All right.